When you think about war, you might think about soldiers and tanks and bullets. But you might not think about food. How do you actually feed an army? There's footage of the storming of Normandy Beach, one of the most famous battles of all time, that took place during World War II. Tens of thousands of troops invaded. But it's easy to forget that these troops all needed to eat. On June 6, 1944, 24,000 Allied paratroopers began the airborne assault, equipped with a 3-day supply of K rations. Hershey's company developed a chocolate bar that, quote, weighed only 4 ounces, was able to withstand high temperatures, high in food energy value, and tasted just a little better than a boiled potato, end quote. The solution for feeding troops is called an MRE, which stands for Meal Ready to Eat. For hundreds of years, militaries searched for better ways to package and store food and then deliver it to the front lines. The results, as you may imagine, aren't always so palatable. Some of the worst MREs have become legends. Whose idea was it to serve an omelet in a war zone? There are even YouTube channels exclusively focused on people who open and often try eating vintage MREs provided to soldiers during past wars. In one video, someone tries a bite of a 156-year-old United States Civil War era hardtack, which is like this thick cracker. In another video, someone opens a 70-year-old pork. The history of MREs is fascinating. It's a tricky task to provide food for soldiers traveling long distances or in situations where they have little tools to prepare the food. The challenge involves a balancing act between having the lowest payload and highest calorie and nutrition count. For example, here's what 1,000 calories of carrots looks like. Here's 1,000 calories of bananas. That would be about 9 bananas. And 1,000 calories of peanut butter is about 170 grams. The weight to nutrition ratio is important for troops and could give a significant tactical advantage in war. Ancient soldiers had to rely on salted and cured meats and cheeses and high-density carbs like barley. Modern food technologists invented methods such as the sonic agglomeration technology to compress 34 pounds of food down to 10 pounds for the United States Army. With this technology, 7 days worth of food would weigh slightly less than 10 pounds. It really makes you wonder what sort of food could be the most nourishing and substantial, like a full meal, but also be very small. The author J.R.R. Tolkien put this idea into his fictional epic, The Lord of the Rings. In this book, the Fellowship of Travelers are gifted a special food from the elves called lembas bread. The elves instruct the Fellowship that one bite of this bread will satisfy their hunger for a day. In Elvish, lembas means way bread or life bread. Another notable example of a supernaturally calorie-dense food that far outdid itself with its weight to nutrition ratio can be found in the Old Testament. In the desert, the Israelites were instructed to gather a special food that came like the dew each morning. The Israelites didn't know what to call it, so they called it manna, which has many meanings, but one interpretation is that it meant, what is it? The people were instructed to only gather as much as they needed for one day, which came out to about 3 quarts. If they gathered more than they needed for the day, by the next day it would be rotted and filled with worms. In the New Testament, Jesus teaches his disciples to pray, and in this prayer, he teaches them to pray to God to give us this day our daily bread. The Greek word used here is epiousios, a very interesting word because it occurs nowhere else in the New Testament. It could mean give us essential bread for the day, but it could also literally mean super essential bread. Give us bread that is super substantial, food that can nourish us on the journey in an above average capacity. What would supernatural food be like? What would it be like to eat food that could truly nourish you for a long, long journey? This is the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It's the official summary written by the Church of everything Catholics believe. But if the contents of this catechism are unlocked, it can change the world. We believe the Catechism isn't a dry, dusty textbook. It's a gift. It's the faithful echo of a God who desires to reveal himself to us. We're creating content that's relevant, watchable, the type of content you want to share with your friends. And all of this will be free to the world and translated into multiple languages.
Relationships are that way for sure. It's about getting to know someone and then trusting that person.
Las relaciones son así. Se trata de conocer a alguien y luego confiar en ese.
Dépendait fréquemment de la foi des gens en lui et en son pouvoir.
Dependia da fé das pessoas nele. Jesus também foi modelo de fé porque confiou.
We're transforming the letter into a living voice for the modern world. We're creating videos, stories, animations, podcasts, social media. We're creating content that's relevant, watchable, the type of content you want to share with your friends. To help people fall in love with the Catechism, the Church, and the heart of the Catechism, Jesus. Join us and help unlock the Catechism for the world. Join in the project to retransform the letter into a living voice.